so many RBTs do deal with burnout. And I like to add another word, compassion fatigue. A lot of times you just don't have the energy to show up like you used to show up.
I think as a man and having a son, is a country man, played sports, so I think he envisioned that for our son, and I'm not saying that that's not possible, but have those dreams change a little bit because you don't know about being on the spectrum.
You're using all of your reactive strategies, you're using your de-escalation techniques, and they're just not working. You have no choice but to stick it out, and that is very, very mentally challenging.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Beyond the Science podcast, where we go beyond the data, beyond the jargon, and we get into the real stories. Today's episode is going to be raw. It's going to be a tribute to the incredible work that all the registered behavior technicians are doing. You guys may notice we're in a different setting today because this is a special episode. As always, I'm joined by my fantastic co-hosts, Joseph Adams and Darius Cooper. And then I have some amazing, amazing guests with us. We have April, we have Lily, and we have Rob. Wow, this is going to be an amazing podcast. How you feeling about it, Joe?
Man, I'm feeling really good. I'm looking forward to hear the amazing conversations that these three are going to talk about, and looking forward for them to just represent kind of just the feelings, the raw emotions of what RBTs go through every day.
I love that. What about you, Coop?
I think I'm will forever be an RBT at heart. Nice now, we've interviewed a lot of BCBAs and a lot of doctors, and it's nice to finally have a little panel of, people that I can relate to a little more. So I think we're gonna have some dope conversations today.
Yeah, I love it. Let's start off a little bit light. April, why don't you tell us something about you that's unexpected that we wouldn't know?
That you wouldn't know. A lot of people are surprised when I tell them I have a 10-year-old son, and he's on the spectrum.
Yes, I remember in our pre-show meetings yesterday we were talking about that. I actually was surprised about that. So what about you, Lily? Pass the mic.
Something that people are typically surprised about is I do my own nails. So living in the Johns Creek, Alpharetta area, getting your nails done is very expensive. Yeah. So I taught myself how to do my own nails almost 3 years ago, and I've saved probably thousands at this point. Wow. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, nails look good.
Thank you.
Nails look good. Coop doesn't need, you need to get your own nails done, don't you?
All right, first off, I'm all right. I went yesterday.
I don't know if you can zoom in, Alex, but Coop has his little clear nails that he does.
It's cool.
I'm messing with you.
Real men get their nails done, man.
What about you, Rob? Tell us something a little unexpected about you.
Something a little unexpected about Rob, man. I'm a true crime nerd. I'm that people they call a psychopath that go to sleep listening to true crime documentaries. So,
nice.
Yeah, that's my thing.
Okay, cool. Joe.
Detroit coming out.
Pontiac, but right there.
Oh, that's awesome. So I guess, when we talk about today, thank you guys for sharing that information. We do want our listeners who don't know you guys to just know a little bit more in depth about you guys. So I want to kind of start, again, we'll start with you, April. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what got you started in the field, and kind of why you're still here.
Okay, so I'm very fresh into the field. As we talked about last night, I've only been doing ABA as an RBT for 6 months. My background is in hospitality. I started with operations while I was finishing my degree post getting it, which is in business, so not psychology, nothing related to the field. I transitioned into sales. So my last position was managing entertainment and corporate clients for Hilton. During COVID, a lot of life changes happened. We had some family changes happen. We lost my son's father. So it just didn't feel purposeful enough for me anymore. I was going on these trips. My friends loved it. They thought I lived a fun life. Like I was blessed to do that for a living. But it just didn't feel purposeful to me. So I went the PA route. I started getting clinical hours. I was working at an ortho clinic, and I would see special needs children come in. Obviously, with my son being on the spectrum, I wanted to see if there was any opportunity where I could maybe be in a department where I could work directly hands-on with special needs. I didn't know about ABA at all. I mean, my son briefly did it, probably 2 sessions, and we just didn't stick through it just because of scheduling. And so I looked into it, found out about RBTs, late July, early August, signed up for an online course, and here I am. So we're almost 6 months later into this.
So can I ask, what was your initial thought when you heard about ABA and getting your son signed up?
Getting him signed up, to be honest, this was back in, 2017 maybe.
Okay.
So back then, I feel like there was not as much out there, and anything that was being said about it was not good. And to be honest, it's probably why we didn't continue. So when we had the therapist come in, she came to our house, he was crying a lot. So me as a mother, my son was only 3 at the time, I think, because he got diagnosed at 2, so very young. I didn't like it. I didn't feel comfortable. We tried it again. I said, if we didn't like it, and this was hard. So mind you, I'm getting my bachelor's. You know, his dad's constantly working and has to travel for work. So this is not easy to schedule this. He also has speech. He has OT. He goes to public school. So, yeah.
So how was his dad handling it?
It was very hard to, I guess, cope with the diagnosis. So I was more of the hands-on person in that, like in appointments, his dad would always, he's very involved, but I think as a man and having a son, it's hard to kind of anticipate what's going to come of this. His dad is a country man, played sports. So I think he envisioned that for our son. And I'm not saying that that's not possible, but to kind of have those dreams change a little bit because you don't know about being on the spectrum. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point because, as a father, like you have dreams and aspirations of what you want your son to look like. So it's almost like the grieving process that we talked about with Nanny. So I can definitely understand that. And I love your perspective because you're like fresh as an RBT, 6 months. So your perspective is going to be you coming into the field as well. And you have a son that's on the spectrum. So we're really excited to hear your insights coming. So we appreciate you being here with us today.
Thank you.
Layla, I'm going to pass the mic to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your journey in the field and everything in between.
So I've been an RBT for almost 2 years now. It'll be 2 years in July. And my heart has always been in the world of ASD. My youngest brother, Gavin, was diagnosed when he was 18 months. So I've always had that exposure for almost 11 years at this point. And because he was diagnosed so early, he got really, really early intervention through Babies Can't Wait. So we had therapists in our house working with him, and it really touched me to my core, just seeing how he made progress so quickly. He presented like the more textbook symptoms of autism. So no eye contact, no physical touch, not being bothered by mom and dad leaving the room, not being bothered by being in the room with strangers, very repetitive play, lining up of his cars. And so the very textbook symptoms. But just seeing the amount of progress that he made so quickly with such early intervention, it became very clear to me at a very young age, like this is the field I want to get into. It was just figuring out exactly how to. So for a while, I was like, okay, I'm going to go the OT route. And then somewhere along the way, I ended up finding out about ABA, and I really liked how hands-on ABA was and how much of an opportunity we have as RBTs to establish that rapport and build a connection with these kids to really help them progress a lot quicker. Yeah, that's what got me here.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you being here as well. And, I like the perspective that you bring. Thanks, Rob. I like the perspective that you bring as well because you have a little more experience and you've kind of seen the progression of ABA and how it can work. So I'm interested to hear your insights as we go along in this as well. Rob, I'm going to pass it to you. Okay. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey in the ABA and everything in between to our listeners.
Well, started in my undergrad at Alabama State. I was a junior. My advisor was like, yo, we're going to put you in this psychology elective called ABA. I think you'll be good with it. I took that class. We talked about all the reinforcements and punishments and all this stuff and watched these videos and these people in these clinics, the old 2000 videos that you could think of, sitting at the table with a plastic chair. I was like, I'm definitely not into this. And then I passed the class. He offered me an internship at an ABA company. So I did that. I got versed into it. I was like, okay, I love these kids. These kids are interesting. I call like all the kids I work with, like they all got their own little superpower. So I started at that. I did my internship Wasn't really interested at the time in getting my 40 hours, so I didn't finish the 40-hour course, but I finished the internship and I went on, worked in the hospital during COVID leading up to my graduation. COVID changed everything. They didn't let us come back after spring break. We went virtual learning. And so I got laid off at my job at the hospital. The company hit me back like, hey, we see you didn't finish your 40-hour. Would you like to finish that? So I finished that, joined that company. I've been in the ABA field professionally as an RBT 5 years now. Worked in all the different settings you can think of. And I've just fell in love with all these clients I work with, man. So, yeah.
And what settings have you worked in?
I've worked in-home, in clinic, in school, all you can think of. And now currently I work in a crisis unit, which is the most different I've worked in so far.
So let me ask, what would you think the biggest difference between in-home and clinical therapy is?
I don't have the nightmare stories of the in-home that a lot of other RBTs have had that I've heard, but the biggest difference is the support, I would say, knowing that you may have somebody in the next room or a call downstairs or around the corner. Hey, I need help. What do you think? So having to figure things out by yourself on the fly because that parent thinks you're the magical worker. Yeah. So I can't come and ask the parent like, what do you, So you want to be the one with the answers because they're usually the one with the questions. So I kind of made myself know everything I can know about my kiddo at the time and what can help. And I remember I heard you say like the relationship between the BCBA should be player and coach. And I was lucky to have that. My BCBA was always just a call or text away. But that's the biggest difference, like feeling that actual physical support there while you're in clinic versus being alone with the kid in home and not wanting anything to go wrong or hear them cry and the parents peeking through the door or anything like that. So, yeah.
So, Rob, we're going to come back to that because I want to hear some of at least one nightmare story that you've heard.
He said he don't have any nightmare stories.
He said he doesn't, but he's heard people who have had a nightmare story about in-home services. But for all three of you guys, take us through the real day. I'm talking about from the time you wake up, what kind of music that you got to put on to go to a certain client. We want the audience to know the real day of being an RBT.
I guess I'll go first. So currently at the crisis unit, well, first I'll go back to your first question. I heard RBT told me that the mom wanted to hold the client in their lap while they did services for 3 to 4 hours. I was like, wait, what? Yeah, she just didn't trust or whatever, didn't feel comfortable. That's the only way to get the kid to basically stop crying at the moment. So that was a nightmare story. The RBT hated it. But as far as a typical day, I start my journey with a 30-minute podcast to work. And then the last 5 minutes, I got to put on some music to set the energy.
Beyond the Science.
I'm listening to a wide range. I can go from Kevin Gates and J. Cole to Billie Eilish. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So man. So them last 5 minutes, I'm setting my energy because, like I said, I work in a crisis unit now. So that looks like I'm working in the morning shift. So we're waking these kids up. We're getting ready for hygiene. After hygiene, they do this thing called group, which is a DBT group where they implement a lot of social emotional learning. And then we're just working throughout the day, just in different independent tasks with the kid. These kids range from anywhere between 10 to 14. So these are kids that know who they are, feel how they feel, not afraid to tell you. So every day's different, man. I'm coming in every day not knowing what to expect. So that's what a typical day looks like for me.
So my typical day starts very early. I wake up at 4:40 and go to the gym. So physical fitness and cleaner eating they're really pillars in my life. And they've become especially important these past 2 years because you need agility and health to be able to keep up with these kids. And I work in an early intervention center, so these kids, they're small, but they can cut corners really, really quick. So I try to make sure that I set myself up as best as I possibly can to be able to keep up with them, to be honest with you. And my drive to work is really easy. I just drive 10, 12 minutes, but I like to listen to jazz on my way to work, get me in a nice, calm headspace. So that way I am as clear mentally as possible for the kids. I try to not bring any of the outside emotions into the clinic because they pick up on it. And I don't ever want my own problems to hinder the quality of service that I'm giving. And I just really, every day looks different. So I just try to not really set any expectations, and I try to be as flexible as possible, and just meet the kids where they are. Yeah, and I'm a lead RBT, so I also have like administrative tasks that I have to keep up with. I forgot to tell you guys that. Yeah, I'm a lead RBT too.
Say what you said, lead RBT.
I'm a lead RBT. I've been a lead for almost a year now.
That's awesome.
It'll be a year next week. So I also have like administrative tasks that I keep up with when I have time that I'm not treating clients. So yeah, just juggling all of that, but also making sure I have the time in the day to get all of it done and do it productively.
Yeah. I want to come back to that in a minute about lead RBT, because that's a little unique. So you're kind of doing tasks, like supervising like over other RBTs as well. So I want to come back to that as well and talk more about that in a minute.
Okay, so I'm going to bring the mom perspective into this morning routine, or the parent perspective. So our day typically, and I say our because my son has to get up with me, my day starts around 5:30. His is usually 6:30 if we're having a good day. And I start off with doing mom stuff. I'm taking a minute to just sit and think. Then, I'm getting his book bag ready, his lunch ready. I'm getting my lunch ready. I'm prepping that. I'm shouting his name, telling him to get up. It's time to wake up, to get to the bathroom. And that's something, and I'll pause on that in a minute, because right before I became an RBT, I was prompt fading. I didn't know the actual term for it, but my son has progressed so much in a short amount of time that I realized he can get dressed and brush his teeth and use the bathroom by himself. I was always around. So now in the mornings, I'm shouting from the kitchen, get up, are you up? Go ahead and start your routine. But that's something interesting. So when I came into the field, I was like, oh, I was prompt fading. I didn't know I was actually doing that. So getting him ready, we're getting out the door. I'm only getting dressed because I actually do my makeup and all that in the car for pickup line. We have to be first so I can be ready at the clinic and on time for my shift. And that's something, some of my fellow RBTs ask me, because I'm a makeup artist by trade. So I own my own business and do that as well. And they're like, wow, how do you do your makeup every day? And I'm like, well, as an artist, sometimes I'm meeting with clients, I'm doing Zoom calls, I have to present my business. So I do it every day, but I do it in the car line as I'm waiting for the pickup line to start to drop my son off right before shift.
Guys, when we were in our pre-show meeting and we talked about this episode, we said we wanted to be real, we wanted to be raw. We wanted our BTs, our BCBA that are listening to really peek behind the curtain of the experience of an RBT. So I'm going to pass this to anybody that wants to answer this question. Have any of you guys ever wanted to quit your job? Has there ever been anything that's pushed you over the edge? And if so, what pulled you back and why did you not quit the job? Anybody can take that one.
Yes. I'll just say yes. I didn't like the lack of value being noticed, not just for myself, but my other RBTs. The idea of that we're replaceable, we're just a body who can pass the 40-hour and pass a test. So I was ready to be done with it. I was like, man. And then I just realized the important work that I do. So that's how I transitioned from like working in the in-clinic early intervention setting to like the crisis unit, because I realized how much more I can be of value for these kids that's not beholden to per se a BCBA, because I didn't explain this, but like I work with a team of like BISs and MHTs as well, mental health technicians and behavior intervention specialists. So as the RBT, I'm kind of like that lead guy leading the charge now. And I wanted to quit because at first I didn't see the value in it because I didn't feel valued. And as I began to just think deeper about like the impact I make on a day-to-day basis versus like just going to it, and not to poo-poo on it, but just go to a job where you're making a person make this millions of dollars selling a service, selling gas, doing whatever. I'm actually making an impact on a kid's everyday or client's everyday life. So I didn't want to give up on it, but I was ready to give up on it. But I'm happy I didn't. I still love what I do, but I just want RBTs to feel more valued, feel like they're really a part of a team that's making decisions in this kid's life that we work every day with. I got tired of the BCBA coming in with changes and not talking to me about it, or coming in and barking at, hey, we're doing this week. Just let me know how it goes Friday. I'll see you later. So, yeah.
What would you say makes you feel valued versus replaceable?
Heard. So listen to my ideas. I work with this kid and anybody in general. We work with a kid maybe 6 to 8 hours a day. I understand the nuances of this kid. So when you're trying to come tell me that this hand washing protocol might work, when I'm telling you, well, if we do it this way, this actually might work, that'll help you feel valued. Be a part of the decision making when you're making changes that impact RBTs in your clinic or your job, whether it be parent interactions or how the schedule is made, or from the smallest to the biggest thing. So being at the table to make decisions, heard and being able to make decisions, I think that make you feel valued for sure.
I'll chime in too there. I feel like it's a disconnect sort of, because the RBT spends usually the most time with the client and usually has the least amount of say, which is kind of crazy, which, I think credit to all BCBAs out there that were able to obtain that and get to that level. I think that might be a thing across healthcare. Like nurses might not talk to CNAs as much and doctors, and, usually the higher you go, the less you kind of see that person. But I do think there has to be more of a conversation that the person that's with the kid for 30, 40 hours a week should have a little bit more say on what's going on.
Yeah, a lot more if you ask me.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great points. Lily, April, before we move to our next question, have you guys ever wanted to leave your job?
I think I'm too new to be at that
Right,
point
you're like,
yet.
I'm 6 months in. Like, I'm trying to keep my job right now.
Don't get me in trouble yet.
No, awesome. I guess I'll go to Lily on this one. And is there something about your job that hurts or that no one talks about that you would like to share?
I'll share. Okay. So, of course, being an RBT, I don't feel like is ever glamorized. It's not a glamorous position, but I think something that can feel really lonely as an RBT is dealing with those high behavior clients. And you don't, of course, working in a clinic, like somebody's always accessible, but sometimes the clinic goes through seasons where nobody is accessible because staffing is just that strained. BCBAs are treating 6 hours in the day. Our clinical director's treating. So if your high behavior client is going through a really, really intense tantrum and you're using all of your reactive strategies, you're using your de-escalation techniques and they're just not working, you have no choice but to stick it out. And that is very, very mentally challenging. It's exhausting. So I feel like that's something that should definitely be acknowledged a little bit more. But again, like being in a clinic, we do have that constant support. So if somebody isn't able to come immediately, eventually somebody does show up. And I do appreciate the dynamic that my clinic has where it's not gonna be like, oh, well, it's your kid, like figure it out. Like somebody's going to come, somebody's going to offer help in any way that they can. But yeah, just those high intensity behaviors and those high frequency behaviors, they can really, really take a toll on your mental and emotional energy.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. Rob made the point of this distinguishes between in-home and clinic. And as I hear Lily talk about, hey, there is always at least support. If those behaviors are going on in the home and the BCBA is only seeing you like once a week, I can see how maybe burnout would be more likely in the in-home setting if you don't have that support. So Joe, when you're hearing these things and you're hearing them talking about kind of, being replaceable versus valued, what are your initial thoughts?
At Adams Behavior Consulting, we don't, no, just like, but no, I mean, it just goes back to my days of being a teacher. It goes back to my days of being a self-contained autism EBD teacher and just feeling the same way. And then, being a RBT2 as well, back in 2018, when the numbers look different as far as BCBAs and staff, and just those moments of going through that. and just those moments of being lonely. And those moments of, because I've always dealt with, 16, 17-year-olds who, those maladaptive behaviors look a little different. They're picking up couches at this point. And also understanding like the field has come a way too, right? So it's not where it used to be. And I think that's why this panel is super important. So that as a business owner myself, I can say, man, I need to hone in on that. Like I need to make sure that people still feel valued, I need to make sure that, some things that, is talked about that I can implement too as well.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you guys, right, and just to piggyback off what you kind of said, Lily, as RBTs, just a question for all you guys. Would you guys prefer to work with a not so challenging kid that doesn't bring you out and makes progress? Or do you prefer the kid that is challenging and you see the progress, but kind of leads more to that burnout?
I feel like I can add a lot to this question because we have, in my clinic, because we are early intervention, we're not really equipped to deal with like Marcus level behaviors. We don't deal with Marcus level behaviors, but we do have a few kids in our clinic that do engage in those really high intensity aggressions and SIB and the whole smorgasbord of tantruming behaviors. But I didn't start this job to have an easy job. If I wanted something a little bit easier, a little bit more relaxed, I would have gone to a preschool setting, something like that. So of course it is harder, but it's a lot more rewarding to work with a kid who has stronger deficits, some more intense behaviors or higher frequency behaviors, and see how the interventions that you implement work. Of course, the interventions that the BCBA writes up, but through our implementation, seeing how they make that progress, it's like wow, like what I'm doing is actually making a difference.
Yeah, I like that. And one thing about early intervention that I'll say is you really do see that progress quickly when you do early intervention, and you talked about, working with adults, and it's a little bit different in what the program looks like. So being able to see that, and Coop, I really appreciate that question because I'm always curious to know too as well. It's like, would you rather see this progress with a client who may have more challenging behaviors, and I like Lily's response is like, hey, I'm here to, I know I'm not in an easy field, and I think sometimes as, I'm talking to the recruiters right now, maybe we don't explain to the RBTs what this job really entails, you know what I mean? And being able to explain that, like you may get hit sometimes, you may get spit on sometimes, you may get kicked, you may have a kid who's hitting themselves in the head. Like these are all real things in the field that we don't talk about enough, that's how it can look. And having that support is imperative. So, I would love to have our podcast, our show be the voice of a lot of RBTs. Cool, we talked about that. I would love to continue to bring you guys on and talk about you guys' experience. So let's get into Speak Your Truth, all right? We're going to play If I Can Say This Without Getting Fired, all right? So if I can say this without getting fired. I'm going to start with April. All right, so I'm going to say, Dear BCBA, I wish you knew.
Well, I think this is important. It applies everywhere. And because of my previous management experience, I see how much it could benefit BCBAs. I'm not sure. Obviously, I'm new to the field, so I don't have experience with that many. But I would say I wish you knew that team synergy would go a long way in your programs and in the team itself. If you're managing multiple RBTs, I think that's very important to hone in on, and not because you have different RBTs treating clients. So all of our efforts matter. And if one RBT may feel like the other one is not showing as much effort and brings that, to someone's attention, I think, those things should be addressed, and those things, there should be a plan, or let's openly talk about it, And previously in the teams that I worked on, there were no hard feelings. We could say what we needed to say. We had one goal. Everyone wanted their commission checks. So operations, sales, we all needed to work together. And it's the same in this aspect. We want the client to be successful. And it may not also be a lack in someone's experience or what have you. I think I bring like that mother experience into the field. So I'm not as, someone that's 18 coming into this, they're very nervous. They're very scared. They don't have experience with kids, or babysitting is different. And then when you're dealing with someone on the spectrum, I came into it very comfortable. My son is not high functioning. So he's level 2 on the spectrum. So he was nonverbal till 6. In my clinic, there's a lot of nonverbal children. So that's very normal to me, where I've met other RBTs and they're like, all of our clients talk. So this is very different for me. So that's what I would say.
Rob, dear BCBA, I wish you knew.
Dear BCBA, I wish you knew that just because you have 4 acronyms behind your name does not mean you know more about this kid than me. Dear BCBA, I wish you knew
He's got more.
I'm just as valuable to this team as you are. Your higher credentials, your master's degree does not make you more valuable than me. And dear BCBA, I wish you knew that if you just listen to me, some of the things that we're trying to implement will work better than what you're trying to do.
I love that. I love that. Appreciate you sharing. Lily, dear BCBA, I wish you knew.
So I want to preface this with saying I love my BCBA. Like, I love her. She's been my BCBA since I started, and her skills as a behavior analyst and her skills as a supervisor are top of the line. So, dear BCBA, I wish you knew just how much I appreciate you.
Can we take a second?
That's dope.
I love it.
I got a cream of the crop BCBA. And of course, everyone's imperfect. We're all human beings. But my BCBA does a phenomenal job at making all of our treatment programs very collaborative. She understands that as RBTs, we get the most floor time with the kids. So we're going to see a lot more of those nuances that she may not pick up on. And now, of course, my company, they require BCBAs to be in clinic more often than not. So they do see a lot as well. But at the end of the day, we are seeing the kids more than they are. But she's very collaborative. She's very understanding, very empathetic. So again, BCBA, if you're watching this, I love you.
That's what's up.
Lily trying to get that raise. I don't blame her. I don't blame you, lead RBT. On a serious note, though, just hearing the different perspectives, all right, that also, I think, speaks to the level of training of a BCBA, the level of schooling of a BCBA. We know that our field is growing so quickly and so many BCBAs are coming out. The training is different. Lily spoke about the amazing experience that she's having. Whereas, Rob may have had some negative experiences. So I also think it speaks to, and for all our BCBAs that are listening, the professional development that we continue to hold, the relationships that we're building, the rapport that we're building. Being a BCBA is a tough job.
Dear RBT, I wish you.
Dear RBT, I wish you. But being an RBT is a hard job.
It's a hard
man.
job.
Yeah,
It's a hard job.
The BCBA is it is a hard job, So this is good because I think we're also looking at the discrepancies between how BCBAs are trained, and I love to hear that you've had a beautiful experience. I love to hear that. I wish we had more of those stories. But then I also want to dive into the experience of you. I wish you knew that you should collaborate with me more. I am with this kiddo or client more, and my input matters. Like, I'm part of this team just as much as you. So I think having these conversations is imperative for our field because BCBAs need to hear this. They don't wake up hearing this every day. And if they do, they may change the channel. But you don't listen to this podcast today because we're talking. So I just wanted our listeners to know, these conversations are important, and that's why we're having them.
So Joe, Jerron, what are your dear RBTs?
I'll let you take that one.
Dear RBTs, I wish you knew that we do try every day. We wake up typically after a 15-hour day because most of our days end with paperwork or begin with paperwork. And we attempt to do our best with the extremely high caseloads that we have. We have a very similar heart, and we wish sometimes we were RBTs, that we can just simply work with the kiddo and just make that progress. But we are ethically in charge of the trajectory of that kid's life for that authorization period. And we attempt to do what's in the best interest of the team. And some of us lack interpersonal skills because we just had to study for that crazy test. But yeah, that's it.
I love that, actually.
You know, Coop, you spoke a lot about, and Rob mentioned this player-coach dynamic. And, you know, just because you went to school to become a BCBA doesn't mean you know how to grow, doesn't mean you know how to lead, doesn't mean you know how to cultivate this camaraderie with your RBT. And if I had to say, dear RBT, I wish you knew I valued you. I wish you knew you are the backbone of this field, and it ends and it starts with you. I wish you knew that, to your point, Joe, we are trying. I've worked in various settings, so I do know a lot of BCBAs also don't have the support from the top. So they may not be able to get the materials, they may not be able to get the resources, they may be juggling 15, 18 clients, and they shouldn't be. And so they're showing up and they're not showing up their best selves either. And I'm speaking from various experiences that I've had. So dear RBT, I also wish you knew the struggles of a BCBA as well. And we can dive deeper into that, but I think this dynamic of just being able to hear each other out and knowing that we're all coming from different places is so important, Coop. It's so important that we have this. So I appreciate it. I feel like we could dear RBT, BCBA all day, but I appreciate this conversation. So I want to transition to something powerful that we have going on.
Yes, sir.
The Behavior Technician Conference.
Yes, sir.
All right. For those of you guys that didn't know, yes, we are having a conference for RBTs out there. I know I was just talking to Lily. Lily was like, I didn't know y'all having a conference.
Right.
But, you know, RBTs have an ethics code. RBTs are going to start needing CEUs. So this conference is important. And Rob, you are the engagement coordinator of this conference. You're also the host and you're on the panel. You're doing everything. We've seen you on the social media, doing everything. So can you talk a little bit about why this conference is necessary and what makes this different from other conferences that maybe are for BCBAs?
I want to say this conference is necessary because it shows that RBTs, your voices are being heard, your concerns are being noticed, your value is being recognized, and this is a space for us. We see all these behavior analysis conferences all the time. They never get marketed to us. They never get promoted to us. This one's for us, and like you said, it starts with us, it ends with us. That's our slogan. It starts with us. This is truly a space for us to share alongside BCBAs because we're both valuable. It should be a coach and a player aspect. A player wouldn't learn a lot of things because of the coach. The coach can't get a lot of things done without the player. So RBTs, this is the space for us. Time for our voices to be heard, our concerns to be noticed, and our value to be recognized. And I think that's what will happen on May 3rd, Behavior University. I'm excited.
I'm excited. You keep saying that player code. You mean that trademark that? He trying to cover your money on there, bro.
I'm happy it sticks.
Sure. May 3rd. It's going to be through the Behavior University platform. We have an amazing lineup of speakers. Going to be keynoted by the amazing Donna Mueller, who you guys know, passed the big ABA exam. We have some BCBA RBT combinations, proud moments, Bobby Rogers. Who else? We have Bobby Newman. We have some RBTs presenting. I'm just really proud about, excited about this conference because it's going to be one for years to come. And you've been doing a great job, you know, being a face, doing a lot of the marketing, putting everything out there. So I'm really excited about this. And Lily, when you hear about a conference for RBTs, what are your initial thoughts?
I've never been to any sort of conference, so I don't really have any expectations, but I would imagine like there to be some sort of like, what's it called? Like a panel up on like some sort of stage having a lot of dialogue, kind of in a situation like what we're having, a lot of back and forth and perspective. And I just found out that RBTs are going to need we're going to be taking our CEUs. CEUs are going to be required. So I would hope and expect a lot of talk about that and what that's going to look like for us, because I know it's only been BCBAs that need to do their CEUs. So I just think it'd create a more unstructured setting for BCBAs and RBTs to just talk and really get down to the nitty gritty, I guess, for the lack of a better word. Being in a clinic or home or school, you don't really get that opportunity to do that with your BCBA and your RBT. So I think that could open up a lot of opportunity for some more improv conversation.
Yeah, I love that. And this conference is virtual.
Yes.
So anybody can attend from around the world. It's making it super accessible. Now, Rob, I want to quickly talk to you, then I'll go to you, April. What are you hoping that RBTs feel like when they leave this conference? Because one thing that I've seen that you've been doing online is you've been creating this community. And I feel like RBTs don't really have a community to go to. Like I feel like BCBAs have their own little cliques and stuff like that, but you've created this community. We have a private Facebook group. So what are you hoping the RBTs feel when they leave this conference?
Like you said, a part of a community, knowing that all those concerns you feel, there's so many other RBTs that feel the same way. And shout out to the Facebook groups that already exist. Shout out to ours that exist. I want RBTs walking away knowing that your voices are heard, that your concerns are being met and are noticed, and your value is being recognized. And not only that, but that there is a community to lean on and continue to grow from, because a part of this conference, you're gonna hear speakers talk about the different aspects that you can impact in life outside of ABA as an RBT. So that's gonna be important because so many RBTs do deal with burnout. And I like to add another word, compassion fatigue. A lot of times you just don't have the energy to show up like you used to show up. So I really hope this conference, and I really believe this conference will do that, from all the speakers, from the panelists, the drop the mic speakers, the networking aspects of it. RBTs will feel a part of a community and will feel heard.
I love that. Joe, when you hear about a conference for RBTs, what are your thoughts?
It's about time, number one. Number two, it is necessary. Not just moving into 2026, but just having those conversations, super important for the field. Because our field can overlook easily.
Yes.
And our field is moving towards being more inclusive in certain areas, right? So I think just keeping that inclusivity kind of model is super important going forward to 2026.
Yeah, I love that.
April, how about you?
Oof.
I'm excited. I love conferences. I love networking. When I made the career switch, I thought I was going the PA route, and I've been thinking about going the BCBA route. So I'm hoping to network, find more things out about the field. I think it'd be great. I don't know if this exists, if there would be one for parents too, to kind of know more about like ABA, what it does, and get to talk to BCBAs, because as a mom, I see that, in clinic when they come in for parent trainings, how they're trying to be more involved, but not everybody can come to those. Like we all work, if there's one day dedicated to that and they make those connections and then, talk when they're available.
Yeah, I love that. I love that one for parents. That's something to think about. Now, parents are invited to this conference. They can come. Anybody can come, but one dedicated to the parents would be amazing as well. So guys, get your tickets to this conference. It's May 3rd. It's virtual, brought to you by BMBA, Black Women Behavior Analysis, ABA versus Behavior University. It's going to be an amazing conference. Maybe we can throw some link in there and give some discounts on the tickets. Maybe, Rob, can you hook us up with that?
We got a couple of discount codes. You can use the one. It starts with Troy. Shout out to Troy. He has a discount code. You get 40% off, I believe. So I went and did the math for the RBTs. If you put that discount in, you actually get your ticket for like $12 to $15.
How much are the tickets?
Tickets right now, you can still get them for $25 on the site. So $25 plus that 40% discount. So
and BCBAs get CEUs.
BCBAs
5
get
CEUs for BCBA, so BCBAs are invited as well. So.
Yes, and as a BCBA, as you should be the biggest advocate for RBTs, you can get bundles. So you can buy one for yourself and as many RBTs that you have. So everybody, like you said, and parents, I feel like we might have missed out on marketing to parents. That's a great idea.
Listen, I think we have to do a little BTS little code right here.
Oh, shoot.
You know what I'm saying? For these people that's about to sign up, I think we already need a BTS little promo code down there.
I'm kind of with you on that.
I don't really know who Troy is. You know what I'm saying? But we about to bring probably a couple of new clients. I'm just saying,
Yeah, did y'all see that? He said BTS code, so are we gonna put it right here?
Right,
or a BTS promo code? I'm with it.
Yeah.
Shout out to AG Productions.
All right, I'm challenging you now to make that happen, man.
All right, guys. So get your tickets to this conference. We talked about prices. We talked about what it is. It's super accessible. We want to see all you RBTs there, all the BCBAs there, and to April's point, all the parents there as well. It's going to be a space for all of us to communicate. Speaking about prices, Coop, I know you want to talk about prices, about wages, about pay. I'm gonna let you lead this segment.
I mean, you know, we've had a conversation before about just being honest about the pricing, the pay rate, and being transparent about how it kind of works in ABA. You know, I'm someone that, if you love working with children, you know, I think this is a dope route. I think it could be a little more rewarding than, you know, your typical daycare, but it's also not for everybody. I think a lot of RBTs can agree that sometimes the pay rate doesn't really equal the work that we're doing, the expectation. And I think that has to be a real conversation. I think that it's a lot of companies that don't pay enough and also don't invest in the culture enough. And I think that, you know, there's a way that, you know, increasing rates is an incentive and a motivator for a lot of people. And I think that it can be done and it should be done. So I would love to hear you guys' opinion as far as the pay rate for RBTs.
I guess I'll start, and I hope this isn't controversial, but I feel like RBTs should be paid salary rate. And I feel like PTO should be a real practical, accessible thing, not something that you can barely gain. So you don't have any way to get paid if a client cancels on you. I mean, that's the biggest hurdle RBTs deal with is inconsistent schedules. If you're doing this job to make an impact, but you also expect to get paid, you also expect to get paid a livable wage, a client cancels, goes on a family trip, doesn't just not feeling well that day, you don't get paid. Especially in home. So getting paid a livable wage, having real access to PTO, and maybe even salary positions. Like maybe not right out the door, but as you continue to matriculate through a company and you've continued to show like a certain level of quality care that you give, you should be able to get a salary role where now you're no longer worrying about that client cancellation or not being able to pay your bills.
So let me ask, you know, because the rebuttal usually for most companies are going to be, well, if the client doesn't come, I don't get paid, so I can't pay you. So what do you think that conversation is?
That's a tough conversation to have. That's a great point to make. I would say I would challenge the I don't want to say truthfulness of it, because for the most part, I might be the only one that day if my client cancels that's not getting paid for that service. So BCBA probably still has other clients that they're working on that come in, or they're doing administrative work. You got administrators doing administrative work. You've got other people part of this job that operations manager, however big the company is. Everybody else that day is still getting paid except me. So there's some way that we can make this work.
I'm gonna comment on that really fast before Lily, you jump in. And I'm really excited to hear what you guys' thoughts are on this. There's certain disparities, because I know there's a lot of clinics where you work at, you get a cancellation, you can just go to another client, right? And you still get paid. And depending on what setting you're working, whether you're residential, whether you're school, you talk about in-home. In-home is really tough because, to your point, and all of our listeners have expressed this to us, when you get a cancellation in-home, you typically do not work. You typically do not get paid. And that is a big turnoff. And even my BTs, you know, that I work with now still, it's like, yeah, that is super hard. You know, Coop hit it from the business aspect. It's like they don't get the paycheck that day. They don't get paid that day. But the RBTs don't get paid that day either. And that is a real deal. Waking up not knowing if you're going to be able to get paid or not, whereas like BCBAs, no, at least we still have salary coming in, you know, whether that you don't know if you wake up, if you're going to work that day. That's a real struggle. Like, and you're doing your job, you're ready to work, but you can't work. Especially I'm talking about in-home RBTs right now. So I feel that pain point right there. And I think that there should be a conversation to be had about the pot a company may have for at least, you know, can we give something? Because right now you get nothing.
Yes.
Can we get 25%? Can we get a little bit? Can we increase all those things? And I'm talking to two savvy business owners right now. So I'm sure their heads are spinning. All right, but hold on. I'm talking about just the RBTs right now, because Google come for me. He's waiting right now. There is no pay. There is zero, and you don't know that. So,
and I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to relate to a lot of in-home techs. You might have shown up that day, driven from your home, showed up ready to work that day, 50 minutes, however long that drive was, got to the door. Little Timmy's not feeling good today. I'm sorry, we're not gonna do services today. So not only did you waste your time and energy and gas, but you're also not getting paid that day.
All right, so how about this, right? And we could do this quick. From all three of you guys, and if somebody else says it, you gotta think of something different. Give me one realistic idea or plan for cancellations.
So I was actually thinking about that. And I feel like that needs to be something that the community comes to solve together, and not necessarily just the company or, privately owned, clinic owned. It might need to be a change in insurance. If you think about daycare, if the child doesn't come, the daycare company still gets paid. You don't get that day back. So it might need to be some kind of insurance reform. If you make the appointment, you have to cancel weeks in advance. Otherwise, insurance still has to pay this out. I don't know if that exists or if that's possible, but that might be something to talk about. Additionally, as a parent, things can be hard for cancellations, not just because they got sick, but transportation, things like that. That happens to everybody. Maybe there needs to be something figured out for that, so that, well, if it's in home, I guess that is different. But I'm speaking about clinic. If it's hard to get the child there, then maybe that's an opportunity that we can solve as a community. And when I say that, I'm talking about tax money getting involved, those type of things, because it's needed.
I think, kind of bouncing off of what April said, when it comes to insurance, it can be, from what I've heard at least and from what I know, it can just be really difficult. Insurance doesn't like paying for ABA. So getting them to do more for us when they already don't want to do it anyways is just going to be, it's going to be a losing battle. Or even if it's not a losing battle, it's going to be a battle that's really drawn out and exhausting. So it would definitely take a lot of movement and a lot of advocacy within the field coming from multiple directions, not just from operations managers or BCBAs. There would need to be a lot of movement everywhere within the space of ABA. But something that I really appreciate that our company does, or that my company does, is they guarantee our hours. And they've been guaranteeing hours, I'm pretty sure, since the start. So when I first started at my company, there was only 4 clinics, and I believe I think our 9th is opening up this summer. Nice. So they guarantee hours, at least 35, and more often than not, it is your 40. And if there are last minute client cancellations, then our operations manager says, hey, there's this opening. If anybody wants to go home, it's up for grabs, instead of forcing somebody home. And that's something that I really appreciate. And of course, like, I always tell people, you don't come into this field to make money. You don't come to this field to be rich. Simply because insurance doesn't like to pay. You're not going to make the money that you would make as like a doctor. You're not going to make the same money that somebody coming out of trade school would make. So it's just about like, the company getting.
I think in home you could make 35 plus, like, so like you do get compensated at the top of the market in home, and part of the top of the market pay is dealing with some of that.
In-home rates are a little bit different than clinic rates.
Much higher, much higher, because insurance rates are much higher.
Yes.
So but it does come with that. It does come with like, man, Fridays it's just. So what I encourage, RBTs who want to do in-home is try to have 2 companies or 2 different clients, all right? And then try to have opportunities to maybe make up hours on the weekend, if possible, if you're available and the client's available.
I'll add to that question real quick, though. I think for in-clinic services, having like a good pay rate for your admin pay and allowing space for that, especially because there are a sector of RBTs who are getting their hours, so making sure that you can have that admin pay for them, that if you can't give them billable hour pay. I would also challenge business owners to add that into because that's not a surprise if you get into ABA field that my RBT might deal with a cancellation. Add that into your business plan. Add that a part of your overhead expense, or add that a part of your expenses where I may need to set a separate pot, like you said, that you pull from however often, that you can set aside for RBTs to get paid even if the client cancels.
But if I'm paying you $35 an hour, why can't you just set aside money for yourself for when your client cancels?
That's a fair question. I think that's a fair question. I would ask.
Hey, hold on. I know you did not just ask the RBT to set aside money when the RBTs are literally trying to make it a day at a of time.
Bro, most people don't make $30 an hour. Let's be real here.
RBT, y'all, I know y'all love Coop, but I know y'all coming for him on this one right here.
No. All right,
So let's be realistic though. That RBT that's making $35 an hour, like you said, that's working in home is not working 40 hours a week. So that's not a 35-hour check on a 40-hour week. That's maybe in between 20 to 25 hours. And maybe even less than that. A lot of RBTs that I know working home work maybe 3 hours the max a day. If you're doing that 5 days a week, that's 15 hours. So how far is that stretching you if you got real bills, if you're a parent that you're also putting in service? So I would ask you, why would you still burden me if you want me to show up as full as I can for that client?
All right, so I think that, and I can speak for myself for having a company. I can't speak for other companies. The vetting process and, in intake and when that initial conversation is, this is somebody's job. This is how somebody pays their bills. A therapist can't come for 2 hours here and there. When a therapist takes a case as, they're going to work with your kiddo. That is a thing. I've worked for 3-4 different in-home companies, clinical companies in the state of Georgia. So I definitely see your perspective. I'm just playing devil advocate at the moment. But I do think that, I think that the part of it is, as a business owner and as the RBT, I think that you have to figure out how to get cases that make sense, right? Like, don't go get a 15-hour case where it might get canceled here and there. You're working 10 hours a week. If you want that 40 hours a week, go get a 25-hour case and a 25-hour case, where it kind of makes sense. And I do think that it's something you learn as you're in the game, because you learn, like, dang, I took this 20-hour case, the kid was canceling, it didn't make sense. So you kind of navigate that. But I do think that's the other conversation of, like, what your goals are, what your finances are, and you're going to be in this field. Even with daycare, kids get sick, they get foot and mouth, and you miss a week here and there. So I feel like, you got to accept that with the punches. It's like being a waitress or a waiter. Like, you might not get crazy tips one night. When you're a therapist, you might get cancellations and have to figure it out. And it does something that has to be taken from both sides, understanding. But that's probably what I would say about it.
I really appreciate this conversation, because these are conversations that we do want to have. And especially with the in-home, and I know Lily and April were speaking to the clinic, there's just a lot of situations, and it's almost 15 years now, believe it or not, situations where, man, you may not have a client anymore as a BT, and then you may go a month before the organization has another client for you.
Yep.
You may go weeks before they have another client for you. So you're really just kind of sitting around waiting. You're not getting paid. Mm-hmm. I know Joe brought up the point of having multiple jobs as well, but that's a real struggle. When you look at OTAs, occupational therapy, when you look at PTAs, they don't go through that struggle. I think one thing that I'm taking from this conversation today is how broad our field is and how different the experiences are depending on the training, depending on the pay. I know when we talk about retention, and we put out this reel recently, one of the number one things that RBT said they wanted more is more pay. They want to be treated better, they want to be valued, but they said pay us more. Yeah. So that's really one of the things that you said today, and that's why this conversation is so important, because these are real struggles that we're having in our field. And I don't know if I even heard a conversation like this between BAs and RBTs, and that's why I'm really appreciating it.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all having this, and I think I love what you said, like comparing it to OTs and PTs. I don't think RBTs are seen on that level, and we should. We are a professional in our field just as we should be seen as, and I think that will come with the higher pay, the higher value that we show ourselves to be. And I mean, I got a lot of ways that I feel like we can go about that, because I think the onus does have to be a little bit on the RBT, to your point. Like, make yourself valuable, like put yourself out there so you can be in these different positions outside of ABA, so you can be seen as a professional. Like, learn as much as you can. Like, no, don't make yourself be replaceable. Because the sad part about it is that we do see RBTs that do just come into it for the money, and you become a glorified babysitter at that point. I don't mean to talk like bad about the field, but like that's the truth of the matter. Like, okay, we've worked in this field where we've seen people who we just like, how did you get this job? Right. And so I think it all boils down to value, and we have to be valued, but we also have to make ourselves more valuable.
Yeah. Let's lighten it up a bit and get into a little lighter segment here. This is for any of you guys. What's the wildest thing a client has ever said to you?
You can curse.
Where do I start? Man, So I work in a crisis unit where these kids are there short term, 14 to 35 days. So after a while, you build a real rapport with these kids because they go to sleep there, they wake up there, they eat there all day. I've had a kid tell me, Mr. Rob, I know you're smart and you got a degree and everything, but all the stuff you're trying to do with me, I already know what you're trying to do. I'm like, okay, but are you gonna do it though? I don't need you to come to be my therapist, Mr. Rob. I don't want you. So I've been called every word in the book.
That's a meltdown.
Yeah, man, what? And 5 minutes later, Mr. Rob, can we play Zingo? So I could go somewhere with it. I got so many places with that.
So I haven't really had any kids say stuff too off the wall. Because a lot of the kids that are on my BCBA's caseload are nonverbal. And if they are verbal, their vocabulary is just very large. But kids are still funny at the end of the day. So there was this one client I had under my BCBA. He graduated almost a year ago. He was a funny kid. Like he would say some things where you'd have to like turn around and laugh so that way he didn't see you, because his things he would say were also very, very attention maintained. But there was one day I was like, okay, I'm not going to say his name. So-and-so, it's, I'll call him Billy. Billy, it's time to do work. We're going to get ready. We're going to get our materials ready to do some work. And he was watching Curious George on the floor. And he said, no thanks, I'm busy. I was like, a little 4-year-old said, he put his hand out to me like he said, no thanks, I'm busy. I was like, okay, I love the self-advocacy.
Yes,
I appreciate you advocating for yourself, but we're still gonna have to do some work soon. I was like, if you want some more time, you can ask me for some more time. He said, can I have 2 more minutes? And I said, okay, I'll give you those 2 more minutes. But yeah, just being really silly.
Yeah.
I've had a kid tell me once, we were, back when I was doing early intervention, man, we were trying to like receptively ID animals and do some LRFCC. And it's like, we were working on pig and I'm making all right, what animal says oink, oink? And we did it over and over again. You got a set minimum amount of trials you got to do per day. So I'm like on my 5th trial of doing, what animal says oink? He's like, you oink again, I'm going to turn you into bacon. Man, I mean, this kid, he would come in rapping Lizzo songs. I like Big Girl, Mississippi. I mean, I remember one week, he was just so awesome. We started teaching him like idioms and all these other things because he was just so advanced. He came in one day just telling jokes. And I remember, I'll never forget the joke. He was like, why do hobos like going camping? I'm like, why? Because it's intense, man. I said, you telling jokes right now, bro?
Wow.
Man,
I love it. I love it. That was smooth.
It was, man. He was the coolest kid ever, man.
You got any stories for us, April, before we transition?
I don't yet. Yeah, I
Okay.
work with a lot of nonverbal kiddos,
love it.
but that's it's fun.
Yeah,
I think all the RBTs that are listening, though, y'all all have those stories to share. So y'all probably thinking about them right now. So, all right, before we move to everybody's favorite segment, which is Coops Off the Clock, we're going to go there in a minute. I want to quickly play one game with y'all. It's going to be called Rapid Fire. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. You have to answer it as quickly as possible. Start with you, April. One word to describe an RBT.
Flexible.
Rob, if the field would be better if?
RBTs were valued as such, as they should.
I love it. Lily, one thing that would change the game.
More collaboration.
I love it. More collaboration. I love that. Y'all did good on that. I might have to go another round on that next time. That's awesome. April was on it. She was ready.
She said the Bible.
I waited for my moment. All right, as we start to close down here, we're going to move to a little off the clock.
This is Coops Off the Clock, brought to you by Sapphire AI.
I love it.
The Jarvis of ABA. So we're gonna keep it simple, right? I'm gonna ask you guys, this is a non-ABA question. I want each of you to answer, what is your love language?
I'll go first because I'm married. It depends on what my mood is that day. But I definitely lean a lot more into, what is it called? Like gifts.
Oh yeah, receiving gifts.
Yeah, receiving gifts. And quality time. And I know like when people hear, oh, you like to receive gifts, like you just like for your husband to buy you things. But it's not even like I need my husband to like drip me down in like all of this nice stuff. But it's just like small things where it's clear that he thought about me when he purchased this, or he heard me say something about, oh, I like X, Y, and Z, and then he went and randomly got it for me. So it's clear that like I'm on his mind when I'm not around him. And then that quality time aspect, it can be very easy to become or to feel like roommates with your spouse, sharing the same space, doing all the things together. Like it can just become very mundane, very repetitive. So being intentional with the time that we spend with each other, making sure that we're giving that time to each other where we are just together, whether it be at home or going out on dates, but just planning it and being very, again, not to say the same word 5 times, but intentional with the time that we spend with each other. It really means a lot.
I love that. Peeking behind the curtain. Yeah. What about you, Rob?
I'll piggyback off that word intentional. I think it's important. You need to say it as much as possible. Mine's is acts of service. My first one is acts of service. Like if you're intentional and thoughtful about how you can make my day easier, man, that's just, there's no other love like that, I feel, because I'm constantly trying to help and make other people's day better. So when I get that back, man, I feel...
Feels your love cup?
It feels my love cup, man. Feels my love cup. Oh, man. Acts of service. Yeah. And words of affirmation. Words of affirmation would be second for me. Like speaking power to each other. I'm really big on the words that I use and being intentional about the words that I use. So acts of service and words of affirmation would be mine.
So mine is quality time first, and acts of service second.
This has been pretty much everything that I have wanted it to be. I mean, April, Lily, Rob, I really appreciate you guys being vulnerable, sharing the real deal about our field, the positives. Love to hear Lily's story about that amazing supervisor that you have, and some of the downsides we talked about today. We talked about the pay. We talked about not feeling valued. We talked about those things. So I just want to thank all of you guys for coming on. We'd love to have you guys on again at some point. As we close down today, for new RBTs or people that are looking to get into this field, what would you say to them?
I'll start since I guess I'm the most seasoned RBT here.
She ain't a lead RBT though. She a lead RBT.
I have been a lead RBT. I have been a lead RBT though. And I've also trained RBT, so I've talked about this a lot, man. Especially in early intervention, I'll just go that route because that's the biggest one. But make yourself fun. Focus on parent. I heard you use the word work. I've trained a lot of RBTs. Don't ever use that word. Like, make it learning. Hey, let's go do some learning. Let's go do an activity. Let's pair yourself with fun. Build a rapport with that kid first before you ever start placing demands. And then when you start placing demands, and I've had great experiences with BCBAs, by the way. I wanted to add that because I've had some super dope BCBAs. I remember a BCBA came to me one time and was like, Rob, he told you he didn't want to do something, and you allowed that. And then you praised him for using his words, even though we're working on him doing that. Keep doing that. We're not building compliance robots. We're building independent humans. I was like, man. So that's to pair yourself with fun and realize your kiddo's not there to just do whatever you tell them to do. We're trying to make them be as independent as possible. Lead with that, and I think you'll be great at it.
I think some really big things for people coming into the field new, remember why you're doing it. It can be very easy to get lost in the, Robbie said earlier, I really like the compassion fatigue. You end up taking on a lot of emotions that are not your own, and that's exhausting. So if your heart really is in the field, remember why you're doing it, and that can really help bring you back down to earth. And I think another really big thing that helps me is no matter how difficult your session is going, or if you're having back-to-back sessions that are really difficult, almost like try to disassociate and remember that you're getting paid to deal with this. So you're not doing it for free. Like you're literally getting paid, and then you get to clock out afterwards. That really helps suppress some of that compassion fatigue. Yeah, those are probably my biggest pointers.
I would say work out. These kids are very fast and like to climb on things. So you have to be strong to deal with that. But really, you have to enjoy working with children, and don't be surprised when they are nonverbal. It takes some time to get used to that, for whatever reason that you're coming into the field. And then more especially, because we touched on BCBAs, understand, because I really like what you said, there are new BCBAs out here, and you might have one that has only been one for less than a year. So understand that, because you're both learning together, and that's okay, because that's what growing is, and we should all be doing that. So that's what I would say to them.
Yeah, well, I love that. To every RBT listening, we see you. This episode was for you. Like, share, tag someone who needs to hear this. I want to thank all of our partners who made this episode possible. Adams Behavioral Consulting, Sapphire, Excellence Tawar, BMBA, everybody who's come together to put this episode together. I want to thank all you guys. Shout out to everything you're doing with the RBT Conference. Keep doing your thing. And guys, we got to have more conversations like this. This is beyond the science, and we really have gotten beyond the science. So thank you guys for listening to us today. We're going to bring you guys more content like this, and I appreciate you guys, and we hope to do this again soon. Thanks.
Thank you.